This is my discussion on pre-adolescents and what they're going through in their lifespan development for our lifespan development class. Pre-adolescence could be defined through conflict and growth, tension and change, storm and stress. Basically, what used to be a steady or a smooth transition in their childhood could grow into something more difficult. And if you have a child that has already had some difficulty, this could increase or even decrease the tension in your house. And it's a time of change, and this happens generally before puberty, around the ages of 10 to 13 years old. So before complete puberty and body change happens, there are changes that happen. Like their mood is generally temperamental. Their interests begin to shift slightly. They attempt to exert more dominance and control. This is where they're going to begin to push boundaries and challenge authority because they disagree with authority in order to establish that identity. They go through cognitive changes and developments before their body changes. So their brain begins to develop before their body changes. They're in an age of discovery and change. I mean, everything about this season is a changing season. They don't fully understand abstract thought, even though they're beginning to delve into it. They don't fully understand it, but they are moving at a concrete thought. But this leads to challenges because they'll fluctuate between those two ways of thinking. So they'll go from concrete thought into abstract thought, or abstract thought into concrete thought, sometimes even in the middle of a discussion. Now, like I said, this happens between the ages of 10 and 13 years old. And here are some of the things that happen to them physically. They go through growth. Body stretches, things change. There's a season where they grow and they kind of hit a cap right before they hit puberty and explode with growth. But you'll see changes like their faces will get longer, their mouths will get bigger in order to accommodate the teeth that are growing in and have grown in. Because of this growth, they will increase their food consumption. They'll also begin to grow hair. When puberty hits, the hair gets thicker and darker, but you can start to see hair growth on the arms and under the armpit. That maybe the peach fuzz is growing a little bit longer, but it's not quite as dark yet. It's not quite as coarse as it will be when puberty hits. They'll begin to get acne. Their body odor will change. If you have boys, like I have boys, they begin to smell like wet dog every time that they are sweaty. And then they'll start to develop these hormones as testicles drop and testosterone begins to produce in boys and estrogen in girls and breasts develop. The hormones will begin to change as they get ready for cyclical activity, which actually affects their emotions as well because they are irritable and grouchy. And this does happen on a cyclical basis. And so it's not just girls that go through this, it's boys as well. There's a testosterone drop and a testosterone boost. And so that happens cyclically. Their personality traits begin to get defined emotionally through this. So maybe your child has been acting a certain way or feels a certain way. Well, they might emerge with an even stronger feeling in that, or they might change altogether. A personality trait that wasn't strong before is suddenly bigger and more prominent. Morally, they become disrespectful towards authority because they are challenging the morality of what they know, because they are entering a season of self definition as they begin to look at what they've been taught and determine whether or not it's something they're going to continue to believe. Relationally, friendships and parents flip important. So parents used to be the most important. Now friends are the most important. Um, this is important relationally, and we'll talk about that more in a few minutes. But where parents were the prominent authority figure in their life, now friends uh, carry an equal weight. Now, this doesn't last forever. As they move out of adolescence, you'll see a shift back towards parents becoming wiser again in the eyes of their children. But in this time, you'll see relationally also they begin to develop a growing interest in the opposite. Now, here are some variables that hit their social development. They begin to define friendships, and what that means is it's no longer this is my friend because we met on the playground. They start to define friendships based on acquaintances and close friends and people they're forced to be friends with socially. Like that could be my friend from homeroom. Like we get along in our homeroom class, we play together, we talk together in our homeroom class, but they're not necessarily somebody I talk with outside of class. But they choose to stay in contact with one another and that is by choice. So rather than friendships being defined by, hey, we're in the same class together, we're on the same soccer team, they are going out of their way to call, text, DM, get in touch with their friends on purpose. And they choose their interests more definitively. They start to decide that they are a soccer player, they are a theater person, they are in choir, they are, a writer, they are whatever that is. It starts to become solidified even in their own mind. They align with those who have similar interests. So they'll start to express a deeper connection with those who share similar interests. So if your kid is interested in theater, they're going to gravitate more towards kids who are in theater, whereas it used to be that they would just make friends with anybody and everybody. Now you will start to see it defined around those interests. As they develop emotionally, that emotional development is closely intertwined with their social development. Those two things go hand in hand right now. But the really cool thing to watch is that their enhanced cognitive development actually enhances the quality of their interpersonal relationships. As they develop more abstract thought, they're able to have deeper conversations with their friends. As they have deeper conversations, their relationship grows. It's no longer surface level conversation, it's now deeper. They become more emotionally intimate with their peers. This is where you're going to start to hear them say things like, I love that person. Now, when they're kids, they talk about how they love things. They love Kool-Aid, they love Jell-O, they love a blue shirt. This is different. This is identifying a person that they love that is generally outside of their family. And then you're going to start to see that they balance multiple tiered relationships. So they have already defined who their friends are, who their acquaintances are, but then they balance those relationships and they maintain all of the status quos on those relationships. They continue to search out their close friends. They continue to keep acquaintances at an arm's length. But as friends become more important, it actually begins to shape their morality. And we're going to talk about that, about the moral variables in a second. But there's an interesting quote from Sarah Addison Allen. It says this: adolescence is like having only enough light to see the step directly in front of you. And so these kids, they're moving into adolescence then, and they're moving and changing and becoming older, uh, but they only have enough light to see the step in front of them. They don't see all of the steps laid out in front of them. They only see these current steps. And that's a problem when we get into things like morality, because morality can actually have a big impact on their life altogether. But in their, here's some moral variables that go into their development. They make daily self-determined moral judgments every single day, rather than going off of what they've been taught. They begin to make those decisions on their own. It's no longer uh, I don't steal because my parents told me not to. It's a determination of, should I steal? Is it beneficial for me? Peer pressure begins to shape morality. And that's interesting because a lot of parents have a lot of different moral decisions that they've put onto their kids and moral values that they put on their kids. And so you can have a kid who is a Christian and with a Buddhist and a Taoist and an atheist and all of these different religions who offer different moral absolutes. Then we put them in together and they begin to converse. And as they converse, they start to make those moral judgments their own. Well, as they make those moral judgments their own, uh, they're shifting between that abstract thought and that concrete thought again. So suddenly, uh, everything is right or everything is wrong, and what their parents told them is absolutely wrong or absolutely right. And so then they present it as something that they firmly believe in, even though in a week they may not believe that, because they're shifting between that abstract thought and concrete thought. But that peer pressure begins to shape their morality. So kids who were firm in their morality may find the ground underneath them shaking a little bit because of something somebody around them had said about their morality. Abstract thought causes them to evaluate what they've learned from their parents. And because the morality has to become their own, it can't always remain their parents. And so in this time, you'll see that morality does become their own. And it's not always what their parents want. So in summary, here are some ways that parents could help their kids, their pre-adolescents, navigate this season really well. The first thing is to create definitions. Allow the adolescents or the pre-adolescents to participate in the decision-making process by allowing them to define what they want. And what that means is as you explore what they want to do, you help them create definitions. If they say they want to be a really good soccer player, you go, okay, well, if you want to be a really good soccer player, then we have to practice. And if we're going to practice, this is what it's going to look like. And this is where we're going to go. And this is what we're going to do. You allow them to create the definition of what you want. And then you create the boundaries around it to help them get where they want to go. Now, in this season, we also have to allow change. We have to allow adolescents to try new interests or abandon interests that they've traditionally chosen. So this means if your kid has been playing basketball for 4 years and all of a sudden they decide that they don't want to play basketball anymore, you have to recognize that they've been playing basketball for 25% of their life. Start to think about how you would feel if you did the same thing for 25% of your life. Now, for us, we just go, it's 4 years. It's not that much in the drop of a life. But to a 12-year-old, that's a long time. And so we have to allow change. We also have to qualify and embrace. So what that means is we have to set the parameters and allow them to choose. Allowing them to choose only works if the choices are embraced. So if I'm telling my son that I want to go out for dinner, if I just put it out there, he could choose anything. He could choose Taco Bell, he could choose Burger King, he could choose Ruth Chris Steakhouse. But if I don't put the parameters on it, if I don't qualify it and say, all right, I don't want to go to fast food, I want to go to a sit-down place that's not too expensive. If I put those parameters on it and he goes, I want to eat at Red Robin, I have to embrace the choice that he's making if I give him the choice. If I don't, what I'm doing is I'm ripping that away from him, and it creates a barrier between us. The next thing is we have to ask questions. If morality and emotions are shaped by their peers, we have to ask open questions. Where do you think this is going to lead you? How do you think that's going to impact you? If you make this choice, help me think through this as we go down this road. Think 5, 6, 7 steps ahead. Where is this morality choice? Where is this friendship? Where is this direction going to lead you? We have to monitor relationships. We have to learn the levels of the friendships that our kids have and track where their friends land on those tiers. Recognizing that a kid who is who's an acquaintance may move into best friend territory within days, weeks, or months, and could also go back into acquaintance in that same amount of time. So it's a constant mapping of where they are at in their friendship tiers. We also have to encourage, because abstract thought is challenging, and we need to encourage and engage the thought processes even when it's difficult. When they move from abstract thought into concrete thought, it becomes solidified in their mind. So they may be making a point that you're going, oh, great, listen to this abstract thought. You're thinking about this, you're processing this, and then they fall into a concrete trap. And that concrete trap causes them to just freeze up and seize on the thing that they're thinking about right in that moment. That is incredibly frustrating in a debate or in a conversation that you're trying to have with your kids. But if you can get them to go back to the moment when they were having that abstract thought, hearken back to the choices that you made that led you to this thought, you can actually move them out of that concrete thought and into a continued abstract thought development. Finally, in conclusion, here are things that will help pre-adolescent kids socially, emotionally, with their morality and relationally. One, we have to encourage contact. That is an important part of the social development. We have to encourage contact and allow them to engage with their friends, whether that's in person, online. As parents, we create play dates for our kids. That no longer happens when they are pre-adolescents. We have to allow them to create their own play dates. Emotionally, we have to embrace the intimacy as they become friends with people that maybe kids that we don't even like, but they love them. We have to embrace that intimacy. We have to allow them to choose their friends and love their friends. Now, that doesn't mean that we just let them go, because if their friends are shaping their morality, we have to, number 3, ask questions. We have to ask a lot of questions. We have to ask open-ended questions. We have to continue to engage the conversation, because relationally, while their friends may be important and have equal importance to the parents, that's not always going to be the case. So we cannot give up our position as an influencer in their life simply because they've deprioritized us. What we have to do is we have to stay involved. And the best way to stay involved with a pre-adolescent is to just embrace them, allow them to define things, encourage them, and continue to talk with them in this time.